6:17. I will call the meeting to order. Mark, can you do a roll call, please?
President Erickson,
Here.
Commissioner Bussey,
Present.
Commissioner Nelson, Commissioner Hunt,
Here.
Commissioner Keller, Commissioner Lunds,
Aye.
Commissioner Peterson.
Here.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. It's on page 3 of your package. I would entertain a motion for their approval.
I abstain. I'll move that they be approved. I'm abstaining.
Second.
I'm abstaining.
Second.
Share screen.
Mark, can you just maybe repeat who made the motion and then who made a second?
I couldn't hear who made the motion.
Okay,
Steve. Oh, excuse me, Commissioner Peterson. I'm sorry.
Commissioner Peterson made the motion. Who made the second?
Commissioner Hunt.
Commissioner Bussey. Okay. We have a motion made and seconded.
Roll.
Art, do you want to call the roll?
Erickson,
Yes.
Bussey,
Aye.
Hunt,
Aye.
Keller,
Abstain.
Lunds,
Abstention.
Peterson.
Aye.
So
Motion carried. Now, technically, I wasn't at the meeting, so I don't know if I need to abstain too, so.
no.
So motion carries 6-0, or, I'm sorry, 5 and 1 abstention.
2.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the oath for our now upcoming Commissioner Nelson, Sean Nelson. So is somebody going to administer him the oath?
All right, you over at this microphone, please. All right, I think these are on. All right, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Sean Nelson, do solemnly swear
I, Sean Nelson, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the state of Minnesota,
and the state of Minnesota,
and will faithfully discharge the duties
and will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of Port Authority Commissioner
of the office of Port Authority Commissioner
for the city of Bloomington,
for the city of Bloomington,
in the county of Hennepin,
in the county of Hennepin,
and the state of Minnesota,
in the state of Minnesota,
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and ability.
Congratulations.
Welcome, Commissioner Nelson. We're delighted to have you. And we'll look forward to your participation. With your knowledge of everything in the city council, we're really looking forward to the input you will give us along with the mayor in that. So it's wonderful to have you on board. Okay, the next item on the agenda is item 2.2, the appointment of officers. They put up a list of the current incumbents, and the only incumbent for the offices would be Sean Nelson for secretary. And my understanding is that Holly has contacted all the incumbents and also Commissioner Nelson to see if they'd be willing to serve. And my understanding is the people have answered to be in affirmative. So I first would ask, are there any other nominations other than the slate that is in front of you? If there's no other nominations, then I would entertain a motion for the appointment of the slate of officers as on your screen in front of you.
So moved. Second.
So a motion made by Commissioner Bussey, second by which commissioner?
Motion was by Commissioner Lunds. Second was by Commissioner Keller.
Okay, all right. Thank you. All right, Mark, do you want to call the roll?
Erickson,
Yes.
Bussey,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Hunt,
Aye.
Keller,
Aye.
Lunds,
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
Okay, let's move on then to the next item. And Commissioner Nelson, we're grateful that you're willing to serve as secretary. I think it's important. It's with all the documents that have to be signed occasionally, you're around the city quite a bit, so that's helpful for doing that. So thank you. The next item is 2.3, the recognition of Commissioner Carter's service. I think Commissioner Carter really provided very good service with the Port Authority. We're sorry to see her leave us. We understand with her family duties and everything else that he's got a very full schedule. So I would entertain a motion just thanking Commissioner Carter for her service on the Port Authority. Do we have
Mr.
a
President, I
motion?
would make that motion and also add a little bit. I agree completely. I think Commissioner Carter stepped in, jumped right in as a new commissioner and did an outstanding job. I appreciate her insight, the thoughts that she brought to the Port Authority. We're going to miss her, and I certainly understand her decision to step away, but I know that Commissioner Nelson is going to do a wonderful job also. So that's a long way of saying I move the recognizing the service for outgoing Commissioner Janet Carter.
And do we have a second?
Second by Peterson.
Thank you. Mark, do you want to call the roll?
Erickson,
Aye.
Bussey,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Hunt,
Aye.
Keller,
Aye.
Lunds,
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. The next item is 2.4, designation of the official depositories, and I'll ask Commissioner Hunt, I think in the past, Commissioner, you've recused yourself on this because you're employed by a U.S. bank. I don't know whether you're going to do the same thing again, but I'll just, I know you've done that in the past.
I will do so again, Mr. Commissioner, Mr. President.
So we have a motion for the designated, the official depositories. There's really quite a long list other than the main depositories. We have a whole list, and I don't know if anybody wants to review that. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion for the designation of official depositories.
So moved.
Second, Nelson.
And who made the motion?
Keller,
Yeah, thank you. Mark, do you want to call the roll?
Erickson, Bussey,
Aye.
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Hunt,
I'm recusing myself.
oh, that's right, Keller,
Aye.
Lunds,
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0 with one person recusing. The next item on the agenda is 2.5, designation of electronic funds transfer.
Commissioner Erickson,
Yes,
we have a question from Commissioner Lutz.
Commissioner Luntz?
Let's move on.
Okay. All right, well then I would, unless there's any discussion, I would entertain a motion for the designation of the electronic funds transfer.
Moved by Peterson.
Second by Hunt.
Motion by Peterson, second by Hunt. Any further discussion? Mark, do you want to call the roll?
Erickson,
Aye.
Bussey,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Hunt,
Aye.
Keller,
Aye.
Lunds,
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Item 2.6, appointment of external auditor. It's Redpath and Company. But again, unless there's any discussion, I would entertain a motion for the appointment of the external auditor.
Move for approval.
Second, Keller.
Moved by Commissioner Hunt, second by Commissioner Keller. Any further discussion? Not. Mark, do you want to call the roll?
Erickson,
Aye.
Bussey,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Hunt,
Aye.
Keller,
Aye.
Lunds,
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Item 2.7, appointment of municipal advisor, which is Baker Tilly. Any person want to discuss this? If not, I would entertain a motion then for the approval of the municipal advisor.
Moved by Peterson.
Second by Keller.
Motion made by Commissioner Peterson, second by Commissioner Keller. Any further discussion? Mart, do you want to call the roll?
Erickson,
Aye.
Bussey,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Hunt,
Aye.
Keller,
Aye.
Lunds,
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. 2.8, appointment of bond counsel, which is Kennedy and Graven. Anyone have any discussion? Not, I will entertain a motion for the appointment of the bond counsel.
Move for approval.
Second, Keller.
Moves. We have a second.
Yes, Keller.
Commissioner Keller seconds. Any further discussion? Mart, you want to call the roll?
Erickson,
Aye.
Bussey,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Hunt,
Aye.
Keller,
Aye.
Lunds,
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. 2.9, acknowledge financial management policies. Do we need any explanation of this? I guess there were a few in there, but anybody have any questions about this item?
Yeah, I do. Is there someone could give just a quick overview what the major changes were? I mean, they were just changed here about 3 weeks ago, it looks like, 4 weeks ago, so, on the expenditure policy.
City Attorney Melissa Manderscheid is going to join us.
Welcome, Melissa.
This is on. Good evening. I'm Melissa Manderscheid. I'm the city attorney. I was tangentially involved in this process. It is my understanding that the council, Ms. Eddington, worked with the folks in the finance department to update the city's financial management policies to reflect the additional statutory authority that is available to port authorities.
Excuse me, is your microphone on?
I think so.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing.
Oh, I'll get a little bit closer. It is my understanding that the city's, the Ports Council, Ms. Eddington, worked with the city's finance department to update the city's financial management policies to acknowledge the additional statutory authority that port authorities have with regard to procurement. So, for example, there are certain things that port authorities do not need to competitively bid under state law, and so our financial management policies were updated to be very specific about where those are different than city procurement requirements. And so those changes were made. We are doing something similar for the Housing and Redevelopment Authority as well. I would say I'd put it in the category of cleanup, sort of clarifying. We're also updating our internal sort of purchasing matrix and things like that, so that it's very clear who the signature authority is and the procurement requirements. So historically, we have relied on statutory authority standing alone. So this is an additional cleanup to make it very specific in our own financial management policies. The one last thing I'll add is that the city's agreement between the HRA, the port and the city, staff services agreement requires compliance with the city's financial management policies. And so we wanted to make it unambiguous about what the requirements were.
Okay,
Anything more?
thank you. I see there was a direct link there. I didn't have enough time to get to the direct link to read it.
Any other questions or comments? If not, then I would entertain a motion for the acknowledgement of financial management policies.
So moved by Peterson.
Motion by Commissioner Peterson. Do we have a second?
Yes, second, Keller.
Second by Commissioner Keller. Any further discussion? Mart, do you want to call the roll?
Erickson,
Aye.
Bussey,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Hunt,
Aye.
Keller,
Aye.
Lunds,
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Item 2.10, appointment of official newspaper. Any discussion on this? Not, I would entertain a motion for approval of this.
So moved, Keller.
Second, Lunds.
Motion by Commissioner Keller, second by Commissioner Luntz. Any further discussion? If not, Mara, do you want to call the roll?
Erickson,
Aye.
Bussey,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Hunt,
Aye.
Keller,
Aye.
Lunds,
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. And 2.11, agreement with IP Strategies for 5-year plan. Is this something, Holly, that you want to talk a little bit about?
Yes, Commissioner Erickson, I'll present this item. All right, good evening, everyone. So some context for this project, you heard a bit about it in our December meeting as well, is the Port Authority in its 2023 work plan had to undergo the RFP process for beginning a 5-year economic development plan to guide our future economic development work. And that came out of the significant changes that have happened in the Port Authority recently. We've expanded our geography from just the South Loop area to the entire city. We've expanded our services to include a focus on small business and more purposely integrate placemaking into our services. And we have a new financial tool, our levy, which we are able to use to support economic development services. So with that, we wanted to engage a professional economic development consulting firm to help us define what our next 5 years of work should look like, and also to include the Bloomington Tomorrow Together goals in doing this work, which include a connected and welcoming community, a healthy community, and a community with equitable economic growth, which includes growth that's more equitably distributed, expanded diversity in business ownership, and equitable job growth. So this has been quite a few months in the making. Our process is included in 2023. We researched similar RFPs from other cities, economic development agencies. We facilitated a planning session with the members of the Community Development Department as well as some of our legal colleagues. We released our RFP and received 13 responses, which were scored by team members here from the city of Bloomington, including Faith Jackson, our Chief Equity and Inclusion Officer, Jason Schmidt, Assistant Port Authority Administrator, Barb Wolf, Assistant Port Authority Administrator, and myself. We narrowed that down to 5 respondents and interviewed them and then contacted their references and finally came to our final recommendation, which is a firm called TIP Strategies. We are planning with them a 6-month engagement, which will include research, community engagement process, as well as analysis before presentation of the final plan. And that engagement will, of course, include conversations with you, our city council, business owners of all sizes here, and other economic development colleagues in this space within Minnesota. And then we plan for a final presentation to you in late 2024, at which point we'll hope to adopt the plan moving forward. Our deliverables that will be included in this plan include an updated Port Authority mission, identification of success metrics and tracking mechanisms for those, updated financial tools and processes, business development retention, and attraction strategies, including identifying key target industries and working with businesses, both small and large, placemaking integration and working with our planning department to make sure the economic development work is resulting in very livable built environment for us, equitable economic development integration, a strong community engagement process, and then a 5-year action plan with clearly defined short, medium, and long-term recommendations. And so we are recommending a contract with TIP Strategies. It is our standard services agreement, which we worked with our legal department on. It is for a not-to-exceed amount of $175,000, which will be billed monthly based on services. We anticipate a 6-month engagement with the ability to extend through the end of 2024 should we have any delays in the process. And with that, the recommended motion is up on the screen, and I will take questions.
I spent some time talking with Holly about this.
Excuse me, Commissioner Erickson, there is someone.
I just want to know when it's starting.
Oh, sure. Could I speak to you after?
Well, shouldn't that just be part of the plan?
Oh, sure. It's going to be beginning in January of this year. Okay. Commissioner Erickson?
Yes, I spent quite a bit of time talking with Holly about this. It's been my experience over many years that what we can do with consultants sometimes, if it's well planned and things, is very valuable. tool for the institution. I hearken back to the master planning process at the University of Minnesota, and Commissioner Bussey will remember some of that, and I think how transformative that was, and just bringing in some other outside people to give you a view and look, and especially at the point in time when we are now embarking on a broadened mandate for dealing with the city of Bloomington. So when I talked to Holly about this, I asked her if she was excited about this party, and she said yes, which I said is good, because it's really very important that she is our executive director, is obviously very, administrator is confident in working with them. So Commissioner, questions on this item? Comments?
If I could just comment, Mr. President?
Yes, Commissioner Bussey.
I'm very excited about this also. I think this is a big step forward, considering the changes in what we're asking our Port Authority to do, moving to a citywide perspective, an enhanced citywide perspective, the staffing changes that are going on, the work that we've got to get done with the Bloomington Tomorrow Together strategic plan, and just the rapidly changing ecosystem within Bloomington and within the Twin Cities. I think this is just a very important thing to do. And I agree with you, Mr. President, that bringing in an outside set of eyes is oftentimes just, it can be transformative. We look at it in one way, but to have somebody come in with a fresh set of eyes, looking at it objectively, perhaps somewhat more critically than we would have, and just with a different perspective, I think just brings so much to the process. And it's a classic example of if you don't plan on where you're going, you're bound to get there. And I think we absolutely need this 5-year plan to really kind of set that path and chart out where we want Bloomington to be in 5 years. And I'm excited to bring TIP strategies on board, and looking forward to what we're going to come out of this process with as a document, as a plan, as a path forward.
Thank you, Commissioner Bussey. Other commissioners, comments, questions? If not, then I would entertain a motion that you have up entertain the motion you have up on your screen.
Mr. President, I would make that motion to approve the resolution approving professional services agreement with TIP strategies in the Port Authority.
Do we have a second?
Second, Nelson.
Was that Commissioner Nelson?
Yes.
Okay. So we have a motion made by Commissioner Bussey, seconded by Commissioner Nelson. Any further discussion? Mara, do you want to call the roll?
Erickson,
Aye.
Bussey,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Hunt,
Aye.
Keller,
Aye.
Lunds,
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Okay, we're going on to new business. So the first item is the professional services agreement on SIC, and that's something that we've all been excited about, the SIC project, and this is just the next phase of it, so that's good news. So Holly, are you going to handle that, or?
I apologize, Commissioner Erickson. No, this will be presented by Jason Schmidt, Assistant Port Authority
Jason?
Administrator.
Welcome, Jason.
He'll be with us in just a moment.
I keep getting it set up.
Good evening, President and Commissioners. Tonight before you is a consideration to enter in a professional services agreement for construction management services for the Phase 2 parking ramp at SIC. So just a quick timeline of how we got here. So back in 2019 was the initial discussion that was had between the City Council and the Port Authority with consideration of entering into multiple agreements and purchase agreements with SICK to locate their North American headquarters and manufacturing facility here in Bloomington in the South Loop District. Just recently, earlier this year, the City Council improved entitlements for their Phase 2 complex, which is a 144,000 square foot office facility. And with that is the Phase 2 parking ramp, which is a 550 space parking ramp just to the west of this office facility. Tonight, as I stated earlier, is that the Port Authority will consider a construction management contract. Future phases that could come before this board will be future subcontractor agreements, and then officially looking at a start of construction in Q2 of 2024.
When?
Quarter 2 of 2024. Groundbreaking would be in May. Just to go back I did present this back in December, but thought it would be good just to present once again to the commissioners as well as the public. The public investment that is going in to this project is for two things. The uses was a land price adjustment as well as the structured parking, kind of the capital and maintenance of that facility. Funding for this project is coming from our Carlton TIF district, which we have since are officially looking to close, our South Loop Development Fund, as well as our Mall of America Administrative and Reserve Fund. And so specifically for this project for Phase 2, tonight is looking at just the parking ramp, moving forward with that phase. Earlier this year, as part of the secondary development agreement on that project, the Port Authority Commission, as well as the City Council, did approve up to $20 million for the construction of this project. Just a quick site plan of showing the location of this. So Phase 1 did open up last fall. That is the manufacturing and warehouse facility currently out there. And then what you're seeing in the green, or just to the south of the Phase 1 building, is the office complex on the eastern side, or the right-hand side when you're looking at it. And then on the left side or the west side, where you're seeing Phase 2 there, that is where the parking ramp would be. So construction services management. So what the Port Authority is looking to do is to have a firm come in and to actually act as our construction manager for this facility. We're looking to enter into an agreement with Ancoats. They are a Minneapolis-based construction management and general contracting firm. They predominantly build corporate office, manufacturing, and science tech spaces, but a number of their employees have also worked on parking ramps. They were the construction manager that did deliver the Phase 1 building for SICK, and additionally, they are working with SICK right now on delivering Phase 2, the office complex. Other known clients that they currently work with are Boston Scientific, Bitech, and then several other downtown Minneapolis businesses. And typical projects that they work on range from between $5 million and $25 million. The contract with Ancoats that is in your packet tonight is a not-to-exceed amount of $1,377,089. This contract is based off of the current top price, estimated price of the parking ramp of $18.75 million. Once actual prices do come in, it does appear that they are going to come in lower than that 18.75. This contract will be adjusted down to reflect that reduction in price. Just remember, this is a not-to-exceed amount within this contract. We did have a third-party review this analysis, Loeffler, with which the Port Authority contracted with, and they have stated that it is within industry standards. They also stated that the percentage is on the lower end with what a number of construction management services are currently charging in the market. Additional efficiencies, if we were to move forward and the Port Authority Commission does approve this tonight, we could see additional cost savings on this project from the 18.75 because a number of the dual construction management services that could be occurring on the site with the SICK office building as well as the SICK parking ramp. Some of those are with the combined procurement process. So when we're actually going out to bid, I'll give you an example, going out to bid for actually the concrete, rather than, they will go out to bid just the concrete for the parking facility and separately with the office complex, but then they'll also ask for a bid if they were to combine those two and see if there's cost savings in that combination, which then those cost savings would be passed on to both the SIC project as well as this parking ramp project as well. Additionally, they would be able to share on-site facilities and services. They would be sharing supervisory personnel, enhanced site use and coordination, as well as it would help in their coordinated safety program and shared safety management personnel that would be out on the site during construction. So the recommendation tonight is before you is to enter into a contract with Ancoats. The motion is on your screen with which staff is recommending, and I'm available for any questions.
Well, Jason, it was music to my ears when you said that the numbers might come in less. We haven't had that happen for a while. It seems like we're always talking about having to go up, so that is really good news. And then I think the other thing, my recollection of this is that there will be public use of the parking ramp when outside of business hours for SIC on this.
President Erickson and Commissioners, that is correct. This would be, as you guys just recently adopted a maintenance and use agreement earlier or late in 2023. The facility is exclusively for SIC during the day between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. However, at nights and weekends, it would be open to the public. And additionally, I should state, I forgot to last time as well until the mayor corrected me, this ramp will be built to be solar ready. So if we were to look to put solar panels on the top, above the top level, that the infrastructure and everything is in place to do that, to make it a smooth transition if we wanted to put solar panels on the top.
That's great. Commissioner questions, comments? I see a hand up. Commissioner Luntz?
Thank you. Just a couple questions. Public's going to have use of it. I'm just curious. It's a curiosity question. Who would be? For what purpose would the public be using it? I'm trying to think what the attraction would be. I mean, it's nice, and I'm glad we've got it. It's a good thing to have, but I'm just going, who's going to use it?
Yes, President Commissioner Lunds, that is a good question. It's more of as this area starts to build out, that potentially we could look at this as a parking district. So if any uses or large events were to occur just to the south of this area, we do have about 30 acres that the Mall of America currently owns that's undeveloped. If any of those uses were high traffic generation users, we could use this as an overflow parking area. Additionally, any of the uses and development as SIC builds out, you've got the hotels just to the east here as well, or excuse me, to the west. So currently in its state, yes, we're slowly building this area out, and in the interim period, probably there won't be as much public use of the facility during the weekends, but we're hoping that will change as development furthers in this area.
Okay. Is that daytime use just weekdays?
President Erickson and Commissioners, correct.
Yeah, okay. And then the other question is just I'm stale on it. Could you quickly go over the land write-down agreement? What's there again? Because it's been a few months.
Sure. President Erickson and Commissioner Lunds, I do not have it off the top of my head, but I do have this chart here. So the land write-down, so previously in phase one, the Port Authority Commission and City Council adopted about a $3.2 million land write-down for the phase one portion. On this phase two portion, the land write-down was right around $2.1 million. And then right now it's projected that the phase four purchase, which would be the lot just to the north of the parking ramp, would be a potential land write-down of about $1.7 million. For an overall land write-down of 7.1.
Other questions or comments?
Are they paying anything for the land at all? what are they paying? What is the city port going to be receiving net for the ground?
President Erickson and Commissioners, I do not have the full amount as far as what the net will be when all said and done, when they've purchased everything. The land write-down was a previous agreement that was done by the previous Port Authority Administrator and the Commission. It was based on a percentage, so a land write-down percentage as to what that amount is. I do not have offhand because it was a fluctuation based on Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 4.
Okay. Thanks, Jason.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Nelson. I got 2 quick questions. Is this designed also to be convertible if parking space demands differ in the future? Could it be converted into additional office space or something else? I know we've designed other parking structures along those lines, and it looked like this had flat decks, not sloped, so was just curious.
President Erickson and Commissioner Nelson, this initial ramp the initial Phase 1 ramp is not being built to be convertible. And one of the reasonings was due to the width of it, with the way the ramp has to be to go up, there wasn't enough land mass to make it convertible. Additionally, we are looking to see if we can do that for the second phase, which would be the ramp just to the south. So if the land use here demands additional parking and we need to do a ramp expansion, we would look at doing a conversion on the expansion of the ramp, which would be just to the south. If at that point it is determined that no additional parking is needed within this site facility, we can actually then develop that front piece of land adjacent to Lindau Lane.
Okay. All right, so their thought process is to get additional space for whatever use, if at all possible, sounds like. My second question is, you said that if there's savings between combining the projects, that they would be shared. Is there a formula for how they're shared, or a process, like how much is shared with the parking ramp versus how much is shared with SIC?
President Erickson and Commissioner Nelson, that is correct. The cost savings would be a percentage share based on the overall project amount, based on both the SIC office as well as the SIC parking ramp.
Okay, so it's based somewhat on valuation.
Correct.
Great, thank you.
See another hand go up?
Yeah, just a follow-up question on the parking by the public. Say I'm there to attend a wedding at one of the hotels a block away. I could park in here. Will there be a charge to park in here, or is it free parking to the public?
President Erickson, Commissioner Lunds, it is currently free parking.
Other questions or comments?
President Erickson, we do have a question from a member of the audience. Would you like to invite him to speak?
I'm going to refer this to Melissa Manderscheid and the mayor. I don't know whether this is scheduled to be an open meeting or not.
Okay, that's fine.
Maybe,
He may speak if you invite him to. He has one question. We have
okay,
conferred with him.
then let's have him address us, please.
Just a quick question is, in this case, what does a write-down mean?
Could you state your name, please?
My name is Tony Fike. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
I'm just wondering, what does the term write-down mean?
President Erickson, is it okay if I answer that?
Yes, it is.
Okay. President Erickson, Commissioners, and member of the public, a land write-down in this case is a financial incentive to this project. And so typically we can look at giving a grant of money. We can look at if we own the property, with it. In this case, the city did own the property. And so upon that sale, we looked at it as determining what is the market value of that property. And then based on that, an agreement by the City Council and the Port Authority. It was looked as we could give them an incentive, financial incentive of this project by selling it for them at a reduced rate of the market.
Okay. Any other commissioner comments or questions? If not, then I would go back. Jason, you want to put your recommendation and your motion slide up? So I would entertain the motion that's appearing before you on the screen to approve professional service agreement.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the professional services agreement between the Port Authority and Ancoats LLC for construction management services for the parking ramp associated with Phase 2 of the SIC project.
Thank you, Commissioner Busse.
Second by Peterson. Second by Peterson.
Thank you, Commissioner Peterson. Any further discussion? Mark, you want to call the roll?
Erickson,
Aye.
Busse,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Hunt,
Aye.
Keller,
Aye.
Lunds,
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. We then move on to item 3.2, which is to amend the minimum agreement with Ardor, the minimum assessment agreement. Holly, are you going to handle it, or is Jason standing up there yet?
President Erickson, this item will also be presented by Assistant Port Authority Administrator Jason Schmidt.
Please proceed, Jason.
Sure. Good evening, President Erickson and Commissioners. Tonight before you is excuse me, an amendment to the minimum assessment agreement for the Ardor. And so just a quick overview, the amendment tonight is to push back by 1 year the minimum assessment agreement start date to align with the updated construction timeline. Within their adopted minimum assessment agreement, the assessment was to start in 2024. They're looking to push that back to 2025. And then subsequently, taxes payable would be moved from 2025 to 2026. A quick overview of this project. Another name that this is called is American Square. Back in 2020, this project received their preliminary development plan and final development plan approval for the Phase 1, the Ardor, which is a 242-unit market rate apartment complex. Additionally, they received their preliminary development plan for Phase 2, the Quinn it's called. It's preliminary, about approximately 86 units. At that time, they were looking at this to be about a 100% affordable project at 60% AMI, as well as looking to develop a separate 313 stall parking ramp. In 2021 as well, the Port Authority Commission and City Council created a housing TIF district within this area. It was to capture the increment from both phases, Phase 1 and Phase 2. And then that captured increment then was going to be used as a TIF assistance for the affordable piece project within Phase 2. Currently, their Phase 2 is still in preliminary design standards. We do not currently have a financial package. We are currently still in negotiations. And so everything is currently tentative and based on approval from this commission with regards to any financial incentives for Phase 2. But the minimum assessment agreement, so back in 2021 at this same time, the developer sought a minimum assessment agreement from the Port Authority. The reason for this was they wanted to reduce their risk and help to secure financing, that there would be sufficient tax increment coming from the Ardor to cover financial obligations for the future Phase 2. The minimum assessment agreement that has been approved for this is $43 million, which was reviewed by the City Assessing Division and approved to start in 2024 for taxes payable in 2025. However, there has been a construction delay within their timelines. Construction was to start in 2022. However, due to increasing construction costs as well as interest rates, their lender required them to come in with additional equity in 2022. They went out to try to secure additional equity, were unable to secure that within a timely manner, which ended up pushing the delay or the start of their construction to 2023. So it pushed it off 1 year. Based on that construction delay, as of January 2nd of 2024, when the city assessor evaluates assessments for assessment year 2024, the project was only approximately 50% complete. So the request tonight is to move that amendment minimum assessment agreement back 1 year due to the delay in the start of the construction and to align the minimum assessment agreement based on their construction timeline. This amendment is subject to the approval by this Port Authority Commission Board, by the City Council, by the Hennepin County Board, as well as by the School Board. And so tonight, staff does recommend approval of this minimum assessment agreement. It does not impact any financial commitments to this project. As I previously stated, that preliminary phase 2, their affordable project, is still within development review by the applicant. Currently, they are still analyzing if they're going to do 100% affordable or if it's going to be a mixture of some market rate with a few affordable units within the project. And so with that, I stand for any questions.
Port Authority questions or comments?
Commissioner Lund.
Hi,
Commissioner Lund has a question.
Jason, just a couple of refresh my memory questions, and it's a statement I want to make on this one. I mean, what we're voting on here is fairly perfunctory. Moving it back here, that's good. My question still revolves my reticence on phase 2. And I want it understood that if I vote for this, it's not any kind of a tacit approval of building a 100% affordable housing site on a river bluff piece of land, which I do not think represents highest and best use in any way, shape, or form. Phase 1, fine, but I'm concerned on that. I just don't think that's the right use for that piece of ground. Okay, so I want to make sure of that. And then I believe this is the first I've heard of that phase 2, considering some market rate units. I remember asking way back when on phase 2, why is it 100% affordable? Why aren't some of the affordables inculcated into phase 1? I was told developers, sponsors thought that would hurt the value, wouldn't be able to achieve the rents if they put those units in phase 1, which totally belies what's happened at the Indigo, the Fenley, Carbon 31. They're blended right in. So I spoke with a lot of experts I know from my years on that, and I didn't see much validation for that. Never received any validation on that. So anyhow, phase 2 concerns me. I don't want any positive vote on my part here saying that I'm going to go along with the Quinn. Are we going to get, is the port going to get a separate vote on the Quinn if and when it gets ready to go? Or is this a done deal? Because that was not my impression.
President Erickson, Commissioners, Commissioner Lunds. As I stated, there is currently no deal or financial commitment package that came before this board for the phase 2. So any future development agreement for phase 2 would have to come before you for a vote. With regards to their affordability, if they still are looking to utilize any of the housing TIF assistance, it is required that at least 20% of the units would be affordable at the 50% AMI to still qualify to meet state statute. Mm-hmm. At the time, this was back in 2021, the developer was looking at tax credits to help move this project forward. This site has since come out of a qualified census tract. So it will be a little bit harder for them to qualify or to move up, I should say, or score additional points to qualify for housing allocation bonds within this area. So that is why the developer is currently looking at other options of potentially moving a project forward in this area. So your vote tonight is not a consideration for phase 2, the Quinn. It is only to amend the minimum assessment agreement. And this board will be brought forth a development agreement to act on when one is ready with the developer.
Great, thank you. One quick follow-up question, just to educate me. There's a term of art here, workforce apartments. I'm not exactly sure what a workforce apartment is. I know what an affordable is, but I don't know what's a workforce apartment. Huh? Yeah.
President Erickson and Commissioners, Commissioner Lunds, it's another term that's being used out there just with regards to affordable to workforce. When we look at it, it depends on the affordability levels with 60% AMI to go even to deeper affordability, the 50% AMI, or even the extreme or low affordability mechanism at the 30% AMI.
It's a synonym, in other words.
Correct.
Thank you.
Mr. President?
Okay. Yes, Commissioner Hunt.
And thank you for, back when we looked at this originally, I had the same concerns that Commissioner Lund's already voiced, and that is dedicating a site on the River Bluff, 100% affordable. And I shared that same concern that didn't indicate to me highest and best use. So I'm glad you clarified what the position was tonight, and that there is something that may be another chance to revisit the best use for that site.
President Erickson and Commissioners, and that is something definitely I can take back to the developer as well, as you guys noted tonight in your testimony. So I can make them aware of that. I have them watch this meeting as well as we continue to work forth on that project.
Okay, other commissioner questions or comments?
Commissioner Nelson has one.
Yeah.
Commissioner Nelson?
Thank you very much. Just a quick question. So if we don't, if we approve this to move it forward, what happens with taxes payable in 2025? You know, what would the assessment be in 2024? I mean, not a specific dollar amount, obviously, but, and where does that go? Does that go into the TIF? Does that go into general fund? Because obviously it's not just vacant land, it's improved. So could you help me understand that part of it?
Sure. President Erickson, Commissioners, Commissioner Nelson, that's a very good question. And so I talked with our city assessor on this process. So right now, the city assessor had to evaluate this property at $43 million because that's what the minimum assessment agreement states. He is the one that actually brought it to our attention back in December. We worked through the process of how do we look to amend this process. If the boards agree to this minimum assessment agreement, all of those boards need approval. At that time, the developer will need to work with the city assessor on the appeal process of the valuation. The valuation, I can't give you the exact amount, but it is right around 50%, so right around about $21 million to date, give or take probably a couple million based on the city assessor's evaluation. So that's what it would be evaluated if this agreement it passes and the contested operation moves through that appeal process. Taxes payable then in 2025 would go into the tax district. So it would be a captured increment. And so the base value of this property, so prior to those constructions, would go to all of the taxing jurisdictions, and the increased value would then be captured and go into the TIF district for a future use of the project.
Then follow-up question, does that impact the amount that would be collected over the term of the TIF district, and does that impact any of the plans that are in place?
President Erickson, Commissioners, Commissioner Nelson, it does impact the estimated valuations. When we had estimated it, it was to start full valuation in tax year of 2025. As previously stated, there is no financial package with regards to this development. So as we continue to analyze the Phase 2 affordable project, we would update our projections based on this change as to what is the actual captured to look at a financial package that potentially could go into the Phase 2 project.
Okay. Are there any concerns that it's going to be slightly less amount there? It just, we'll just negotiate it and.
President Erickson, Commissioner Nelson, there was no concern with that. We would potentially, what we're trying to do with a lot of our TIF districts is to see, can we close these earlier? Is there a way for us to analyze it trying to hit at the needs, the strategic priority needs that the city council has laid out for us, specifically around affordable housing. Can we get at those deeper affordability levels? And then from there, we work on it as far as, okay, we have X amount of money we're working with to close this gap. Let's see if we can close this district earlier, and then get that back on the tax rolls.
Great. Last question I have here, and I share the concerns of my colleagues here. I was not on the port at the time, but I was on the council and had taken a similar tact, but it was slightly different in that I was a little bit troubled that we had one building that was market rate and then one building that was affordable. So it's like, oh, if you got money, you can live here, but if you have less money, you can live over there. I felt that it sent the wrong message at the time. And the other thing is, I don't know, because that hasn't been approved, I don't think it's in the calculation of where we're at with regards to the amount of affordable housing units, but I know one of the big focuses, and we'll talk about this in a minute, is deeply affordable. And so I would emphasize if there's a chance to get deeply affordable with mixed or with market rate into this and really have that process be possible, I think that would be overall good for the land use, overall good for the community, because I am very concerned when we start to concentrate lower incomes, that is a worse outcome than having it integrated into areas, which I think is a much better approach. That integration, I think, is a key part of our opportunity housing ordinance. So just wanted to thank my colleagues here for bringing up those previous concerns. Thank you.
Other Port Authority questions, comments? If not, I would then entertain the staff motion. So we have a commissioner willing to make the motion.
So moved, Mr. Keller.
We have a second.
Second, Nelson.
So we have a motion made by Commissioner Keller, second by Commissioner Nelson. Any further discussion? Mark, do you want to call the roll?
Erickson,
Aye.
Bussey,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Hunt,
Aye.
Keller,
Aye.
Lund,
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Okay, thank you, Jason, for your presentations.
Mr. President, if I could interrupt for just a moment, please, respectfully here. As you can probably tell, I'm not in the council chambers. I'm actually in Washington for the U.S. Conference of Mayors winter meeting, and I have another meeting. I'm meeting with someone here shortly. And so respectfully, I'm going to drop from our call now, knowing that I'll have an opportunity to talk opportunity housing ordinance with the rest of our council colleagues when it comes before the city council. But I just wanted to let you know that and thank everybody for being here tonight, and appreciate your willingness to discuss these things and to put up with me as I step away here. But thank you much.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Bussey. Okay, well, we'll go on then to the next item, which is the Opportunity Housing Ordinance. And you see somebody else coming up to the podium there, so.
President Erickson, this item will be presented by Kenny Nietmeyer, Housing Development Specialist for the Port Authority. He is our newest member of the team, and this is a study session this evening. You will not be asked to vote, but you will have opportunities to ask questions throughout the presentation.
Well, Kenny, we'll give you a double welcome then if this is the first time you're coming before us, and so we want to greet you, and I know that Holly is excited about you joining the staff and stuff, so we'll let you proceed.
Thank you, President Erickson and Commissioners, and thank you for being here tonight. This item is proposed amendments to the Opportunity Housing Ordinance. I've started this presentation with some of the statements of purpose that the Opportunity Housing Ordinance has, and we've actually discussed a couple of these already tonight. There are more than that are on the screen, but I brought these 4 out because they are closely related to the proposed amendments that we're considering tonight in this study session. So on the screen, some of these statements of purpose relate to emphasizing providing housing to households at all income levels, providing housing for employees of businesses in the city and region, workforce housing, and establishing an affordable housing program that promotes development through incentives and requirements. So let's just jump right in. So talking about how the OHO has helped us achieve our city objectives and goals. This table shows both constructed and under construction housing since 2021. The reason we've got 2021 is that's the beginning of the reporting period for our Metropolitan Council housing need goals. So that's an allocation that the Met Council puts on communities in the metro area. It's a forecast for future affordable housing needs using a regional economic model. The Met Council then allocates a share of the overall need to all communities. So for that period from 2021 to 2030, you can see on the very bottom row of that table the allocation of need to Bloomington. So a couple things to draw out here. The city is doing quite well for its goal of constructing new units affordable at 60% AMI. We've already surpassed our goal of 151 units. We're also making good progress toward new units affordable at 50% AMI. This only reflects opened and under construction buildings. If we were to include buildings that have been approved for development, we would have surpassed the 50% AMI goal. However, as Commissioner Nelson mentioned, we have a long, long way to go when it comes to units affordable at 30% AMI, and that's that deepest level of affordability that the Met Council sets goals for. So we wanted to draw that out. These amendments that we're going to consider tonight are intended to help us work toward achieving those goals, specifically relating to more units affordable at 30% AMI. I'll also mention that the amendments that are part of the wider package of proposed amendments were resulting from several weeks of discussion and study within the City of Bloomington, cross-division and cross-department. Some engagement and discussion has taken place, and we've also received input from housing developers, and we've incorporated outcomes from developments that were approved and constructed since the OHO took effect. So all of these things came together to put forth the proposed amendments for tonight. So let's talk about what types of amendments we have and what the goals of the amendments are. So the amendments that are part of the wider package are modifications to existing language. There's one item of new language, and there are minor updates and clarifications that have no large impact on OHO implementation. And I'll refer to the Opportunity Housing Ordinance as the OHO. As for amendment goals, the goals of the amendments are to respond to the changing economic circumstances, local housing needs, and real estate market conditions. We've already talked about some of those tonight, talking about rising interest rates, income not rising as fast as rents are. These are the things that the proposed amendments are meant to respond to, as well as the reality of work from home, which has resulted in some commercial and office space going underutilized. So there's discussion of conversion of those spaces to housing. The amendments proposed tonight are meant to bolster the incentives for developers to bring forth housing that's affordable to households earning 30% AMI or lower, so that deepest level of affordability. And the amendment goals are meant to provide clarity for how developers interact with the OHO and with the city in the development process. So tonight, what I've brought forth in this presentation and in the study session are several items pulled out from the larger amendment proposal package that I have specific, or that the city has specific considerations to ask to the wider board. So these 5 items on this list we'll go through one by one, and after presenting each item, I'll ask, I have a direct question, a consideration that I would ask the port to respond to, and then we can proceed from there. I'll also mention if there are any other items that port commissioners wanted to ask from that larger staff report that was part of the agenda packet. I'm happy to take questions and take feedback, and that can come at the end of the presentation. So without further ado, I'll just jump over to the first proposed modification. This is a modification to existing language for 9.09, which is payment in lieu of affordable units. So the proposed amendment would allow a developer, or would amend the incentive so that a developer assigning an in lieu payment to another development would be required to provide 9% of the total dwelling units from the original housing development, in addition to 11% of total units in the proposed development. The reason for this proposed amendment is, as currently written, the developer is required to provide 20% of total dwelling units in the proposed development at an affordable level. So the issue with this is that if the proposed development includes less units than the original development, you could imagine an original development at 100 units, so 9% would be 9 units. If the proposed affordable development that's receiving the in lieu payment was only a 20 unit building, 9% of that 20 unit building would be only 2 units. So 2 units plus the 11%, another 2 units, you'd only get 4. So as written with this proposed amendment, we would be ensured that we would get that 9% from the original development, which would be those 9 units. So the consideration with this amendment is a bit wider in philosophy, and in fact, Commissioner Nelson brought this up tonight. Does allowing for off-site development of these affordable units create a geographic segregation of market rate units from affordable units? Is this something that we don't see as achieving the OHO's objective of dispersion of affordable units? So there are objectives as part of the OHO which include integration within a development of units affordable at different income levels. So that would be a residential development that includes both market rate and affordable units. There's also an objective of dispersion, so that not one geographic area has all of the affordable units within the city. So a consideration that we're bringing to the board, to the Port Authority is does this allowance for off-site development achieve that goal of dispersion? And I'll just open it up to thoughts and considerations on that. I can just take notes and, yeah.
Any commissioner questions or comments?
It's Commissioner Peterson. Yeah, so my reaction to that is kind of given the rate of development in the city, I think if this flexibility helps overall in terms of making more projects work, I would tend to say, hey, let's try it and see if this causes a problem in this area. If it does, after being in there for 3 or 4 years, you could go back and look at it and say, is this really achieving our objective? But it just strikes me that that given the nature of how development works and the fact that projects run by developers tend to be in a particular location, that it's unlikely to make a meaningful difference in the geographic dispersion, and it's worth trying to see if it helps promote projects.
Other questions, comments? I think you can move ahead.
Thank you, President Erickson and Commissioners. One last side note I'll add to this. One thing that other cities have done, added on to their inclusionary zoning policies, is a requirement for a geographic boundary within the original development, that the affordable development or the development that includes the affordable units must be within, for example, a 1 mile radius of that original development. So that's one way that we could ensure that that dispersion is taking place and integration geographically. So the second modification to existing language is from section 9.16.04, and this is the impervious surface area maintenance. As currently written, this is an incentive to allow for an increased impervious surface area. So this amendment is in response to discussion at a city council meeting where the OHO update was presented. The question from commissioners was, how can we ensure that the OHO is encouraging environmentally sustainable and resilient development? And this amendment came up as a concern that if we're incentivizing additional impervious surface area how is that aligning with those sustainability goals? So the proposed amendment tonight is to retool this incentive to be more applicable to conversion projects. So this incentive would be removed from just a residential development, and instead would only be available to those projects that are converting existing commercial buildings to housing units. And instead of providing for an increased impervious surface area, this incentive would allow for a maintenance of the current allowed maximum impervious surface coverage for the applicable commercial zoning district. And this was a recommendation from the planning division to continue to offer this as an incentive, but be responsive to some of the desires of the development community in terms of conversion projects. So a consideration for the Port Authority tonight would be, is this the affordability requirement presented in the amendment, which is that 20% of total dwelling units must be affordable at that 50% AMI. Is that an appropriate requirement, or should we consider something even more stringent or something more lenient, knowing that financing these conversion projects is challenging?
Questions or comments?
I got one quick comment. Was there any consideration of a lower percentage of the dwelling units at a lower AMI, just again to target those units?
Thank you, President and Commissioners. So absolutely, that's something we could consider and put forward. As you'll see in some of the later amendments, the goal is to implement more incentives at that 30% AMI, so this could be a potential for that. I'll emphasize again, from what I've learned about these conversion projects, they're quite difficult to finance. However, if a project was out at the outset seeking to be affordable and utilize affordability financing subsidies, it might be appropriate to require that lower affordability level. So I think that's something that we can consider widely.
Okay, any other? So we can move on then.
I got a question, Bob.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So what I'm thinking about is if you have a commercial building that's ripe for conversion, that has low occupancy, et cetera, and I think about putting rules in place here. What I'm trying to think about is if let's say that your project is kind of outside of this and you're not allowed to maintain the maximum impervious surface coverage. Do we end up triggering effectively kind of complete obsolescence of the building, where we're effectively saying, well, you're just going to have to go tear that down and build something new because it doesn't work? And is that really better in the big picture? You know, if you look holistically, what we want to do, as opposed to allowing the conversion to occur and override the kind of residential impervious surface coverage rules. Because I'd hate to see us or people having to basically be in a position where now the economics mean you got to go tear the building down because we put this in place. And I understand there's an incentive and so on like that, but that's my concern. Is I'd be interested in some thoughts on how that balance gets struck.
Thank you, President and Commissioners. Yes, absolutely. The one thing I would add is that this recommendation was put together by the Planning Division, which makes me optimistic that they would consider what you've just described as that worst case outcome, where it creates an obsolescence situation. And then it certainly wouldn't be achieving that goal of environmental sustainability if you're tearing down an existing building. But I think that's worth bringing back to planning and discussing more in depth. I know as part of their work plan, office conversions is a goal. So this might be a consideration to look more at as they're doing that process. So I have a question and response at this time. Would it be more appropriate to wait for that item from planning to move forward, in which case the incentive would, as proposed, would be moot. Essentially, if we take out the benefit to conversion projects, then the proposed amendment would as written, be simply eliminating that impervious surface area incentive. Is that, how would the Port Authority react if that were the case? We'd be removing an incentive.
Do we have any question or comment to this question? I also want to tell you, I have to be out of here in 15 minutes, so.
I can kick it up a notch then. Well, so thank you for comments on that item. I can bring that and discuss more with planning, I would say, and bring it back. And I can talk later about timeline as well. So the next item is modification to existing language for section 9.19, which is the parking reduction incentive. So as currently written, the development allows for parking reductions. This has been widely taken advantage of by affordable housing developments. And as a result of some of those development outcomes, we've put together some of the proposed amendments for tonight. So the proposed development is that a affordable housing development that's seeking a parking reduction incentive above 10% may be required to undertake a parking study. As written, the amendment would allow for the city engineer or designee to require a parking study if they see fit. The consideration is that proposed parking reduction percentage threshold appropriate? Do we see that as too low, too high? Is that something we want to modify?
Questions or comments?
Are you asking a question there?
President and Commissioners, yeah, the question would be is, so this proposed amendment would be to implement this 10% threshold for when the city engineer may require a parking study for an affordable developer. So the developer themselves would undergo that parking study and finance that parking study. So with that in mind, that they would be taking on the cost. This is an affordable housing developer potentially. Is that threshold for when the city is allowed to require a parking study?
So you're asking what the threshold is? Is it a 10% reduction or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
Which that could be anybody's guess at that point. That same developer is going to be looking for financing.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the lender going to approve? And not likely to go anything less than what's the required for if another developer came in or another user came in, and it's not necessarily affordable housing, but you still have a multifamily to multifamily with that lender. So it might not. I don't know that putting a percentage in is appropriate, other than likely a study to be required.
Thank you, President Commissioner. So am I hearing it might be more appropriate to leave it entirely up to staff discretion? The reason that the 10% was settled on as a proposal was giving the developer some assurance that they wouldn't have to undergo that parking study unless they exceeded that threshold. So in this, possibly we would make it completely a discretion of staff, or would you rather see a higher percentage for that threshold to take place, if that makes sense?
Matt?
Commissioner Keller has a question.
Yeah, so
President Erickson.
I'm with Commissioner on that, but further, I mean, the statutory interpretation would be that we may not do that. And why do we have to have an ordinance tell us what we can't do? And, why do you want our hands tied in negotiations with developers? It seems odd to be pre-negotiating yet unforeseen realities in something of a statutory nature. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
You want to keep your options open, I think, and it
Yeah,
may or may not.
I love the word
appropriate.
may.
May.
Let's go with the may a lot.
Thank you, President Commissioner. So it sounds like there's more of a favorability for that discretion rather than tie our hands, as you've said, with a percentage. We would look to leave it up to city engineer and designee in this case as proposed.
As a drafter of contracts for a living, a lot of times it's better to not say anything if you don't have to. That, your contract doesn't have to say you can't kill children in a daycare either.
Thank you, President Commissioners. I'll say that the proposed amendment is meant to clarify the interaction of the OHO with developers. The developers appreciate clarity with what the requirements they'll be subject to. So having it written kind of lays out the groundwork for what they'll be required to do. It's also in response to developments that have sought out that higher percentage level and still were able to develop without a parking study and then have resulted in some parking issues. So in this case, it's actually giving the city more of an ability to require a parking study than I would argue that we currently have in our development process.
It doesn't read that way to the, and I haven't been on this for a while. Developers don't seem to have a real hard time telling us what they want. Mm-hmm. So.
Okay.
Thank you, President and Commissioners. Next item is modification to existing language of Section 9.23, which is the storage space reduction incentive. So this incentive amendment would be to allow for this incentive is a tiered incentive. So there's a certain reduction in storage space that's available at the 60% AMI level, also at the 50% AMI level, but there is no current incentive tier for that 30% AMI level. So this would add a 100% reduction in required storage space if a developer provides 20% of total dwelling units affordable at 30% AMI. The consideration for the Port Authority is, would removing this requirement for storage space result in overcrowding of units or storage issue? This is a concern that was brought forward from environmental health, the division within the city of Bloomington. So we want to ensure that this is being considered with this proposal. So that's the consideration.
President,
Yeah.
President Erickson, Commissioner Lentz has a question.
Where does this come from again? I mean, reducing storage space to me is always problematical. I don't know that less well-off people have any more stuff to put away than well-off people. I mean, in some part condos, I've seen them sell storage spaces, one unit to another. So I don't know why we want to. And whenever I see up to by 100%, increase that also. That's right to the max. So I don't know. That raises questions.
Thank you, President, Commissioners. So this proposed amendment comes from a response to developers who have said that this is a prohibitive requirement. This outside of unit storage requirement. It's a 175 cubic foot per unit requirement if no dedicated bicycle storage is provided. So just to give an example, in a 100 unit market rate development, that would be 17,500 cubic feet of storage space. On average, if you looked at an average 751 square foot one bed apartment, that's 8 feet tall, that's 6,008 cubic feet. So if you were to take out 100% of the storage space requirement, you could potentially have an additional 2.9 one bed units in a proposed development. Mm-hmm. So there's a bit of a give and take with this if that outside space requirement is removed.
On a practical level, anyone has seasonal decorations they don't want out 12 months a year. They got to have a place to put them.
Never do we want them having out. I think the over-specificity of all of this is what's maddening to me. Yeah.
Thank you, President Commissioners. I'll just speak again on the purpose in this case is to create an additional incentive for those units that are affordable at that deepest level. So those developments are quite difficult, quite expensive. So we're seeking to implement incentives that make those more feasible, both from an ordinance perspective, but also financial perspective. So if one of these developments can include another 2.9 units, that might make that project pencil out financially. So just to ground ourselves again in the reasoning for these proposed amendments, the reasoning for over specificity in this case.
Got a quick question. Do you know off the top of your head what the reduction is allowed at 50% of AMI? So how much of a change this is?
I can get that.
Sorry.
I'll keep moving and then come back to it if that's
Okay,
all right.
thank you.
I'm going to move on to the next item and then I'll come back to here. This is our last item. So modification to existing language for section 9.27. This is expedited review of plans. This is an incentive that, as written, is strictly available to developments in the Gateway area, which is a geographic area encompassing west of the Mall of America. This is not an area that's a priority of city ordinance. So as you'll see in the minor amendments and clarifications, references to Gateway area have been removed from the OHO. Rather than eliminating the expedited review of plans incentive from the OHO, the proposal is to retool it to only be available to those housing developments that include units of affordable at 30% AMI. So the most affordable units, the consideration is as written, as the proposal is written, the incentive would be available if even one unit is provided at that 30% AMI level. So the consideration is, should there be a minimum percentage set to access this incentive?
I'm going to ask Commissioner Nelson to take over the conduct of the meeting. I need to exit the building here. And so thank you very much for the discussion. And if Commissioner Nelson would just finish your discussion so you can have time to do that, would be great. So thanks very much.
Yeah. Happy to do it. So
Thank you, President Erickson.
only took an hour and a half to take over.
Bye, Robert.
All right, take care, guys.
Thanks.
President Erickson was at a library today to meet our public location requirements, so he had some limits on his time. Commissioner Hunt, please turn on your microphone. Thank you.
The development coming through goes to the head of the line for review in the building permit section if they have a certain element of affordable housing.
Yes.
And their thought process is, because they have this, therefore they get. So what message does that give when we want to be transparent and everyone equal? We're not doing it that way then. By saying, okay, you can go to the head of the line if you have X number of affordable units.
Thank you, President, Commissioners. So as currently written, this applies, this incentive, it applies to developments that are at minimum 15% affordable at that 60% AMI level. So it is an incentive currently available to those developers. I would make the argument that we would want to incentivize affordable housing developments to take place in the city so that those residents in our city that can't afford market rate units have somewhere where they can rent, and especially within areas that maybe they weren't traditionally able to have access to due to there not being integration of those market rate and affordable units. So it's not a preferential treatment for, it's a preferential treatment for developments that are achieving the city's goals. And in this case, the city's goals are providing those affordable units.
Yeah. Commissioner Peterson?
Yeah, so just that I understand this correctly, and the people who are more involved in development on the commission than me can answer this, but is the basic value here that it's the economic cost of the pre-construction part of the project? Is that really what going to the head of the line really gets you, right? Isn't that what you end up getting here by going to the head of the line?
Is what?
It reduces, so in my software engineer picture of what development projects are, there's the kind of costs that lead up to the point where you're able to finance the project and start constructing it. And if you can go to the head of line, it might cut a month or two out of that from a calendar perspective. And so that it's a time value of money thing around money you've got invested in that. That's what you're talking about here, that this saves. But that part of the project is typically pretty cheap compared to the cost of actually constructing the project. So the question I have is how much real economic value does this generate for developers that would cause behavior changes?
Probably more convenience.
It's more convenient.
It's a
than anything.
convenient thing, yeah. But I'm trying to, if our goal is to incent things and like, for example, on the storage one, you can, in your head, you can say, hey, if there's less storage, the units cost less to build, and there's an economic equation there. I'm just trying to understand what the economic equation here is. It seems like that it's a financing the kind of that early part of the project and kind of the carrying cost of that. Is that right? Pretty much?
President Commissioners, I would agree. And the other thing I'd mention is that these affordable housing developments often have very stringent deadline requirements related to their funding with their complex financial stacks. So this may be an attractive incentive to them if they have more assurance for the amount of time that their building permit application would take place. I'll also mention that since this amendment, or since this incentive was made available, 30% of the developments, so since 2021, 30% of the developments that have come through have taken advantage of this incentive, so that's a good deal of the developments.
Any further questions? Hearing none, keep going.
Thank you, President. Commissioners, and President Nelson, I'll mention for that storage space reduction incentive, at the 50% AMI level, it's 75% reduction in external storage space. So this would be another 25% at that.
Okay, thank you.
So those are all of the specific modifications to existing language that I was hoping to solicit consideration from. So thank you for your engagement with that. If there's any other discussion wanted on any of those items or anything else that was part of that wider staff report, now would be a great time.
Yeah, Commissioner.
Yeah, 9.2 on the minor updates and clarifications. I read that, and the requirement of comparable design and proportional access. I have no idea what proportional access is.
Where are you at, Bob?
Proportional to what? Yeah, 9.2. Updates and clarifications.
Oh,
Thank you, President Commissioners. So proportional to access by market rate units.
Say that again?
Proportional to the access that the market rate units have in that same development. So if 60 market rate units, well, I'm not going to be able to do that math. If a certain amount of market rate units that represent a percentage of the total units in a development have access to, for example, in-unit laundry, then we would want a same percentage of the affordable units in that development to have access to that in-unit laundry. So it's ensuring that there's a equal treatment of those affordable units to those market rate units. And one way to achieve that is a requirement for proportionality.
Okay.
Commissioner Peterson?
Doesn't that have the effect, though, of basically increasing the price of the affordable units?
Thank you, President Commissioners. Construction cost, yes, but rent cost, no, because as the OHO is written, there's a affordable rent limit, and that's set by Met Counsel. HUD sends numbers, and Met Counsel establishes rent limits based on those area median incomes. So those rents must always be affordable at those area median income levels, and affordable meaning that the rent doesn't constitute more than 30% of a tenant's monthly income. That's the definition of affordable.
But in terms of the kind of finances of the overall project, it seems to definitely enter into that. I'm trying to find where that language is here because I didn't see that when I was reading it before. 9.20.
President and Commissioners, I believe the It's 9 point,
I believe it's page 87, if they're numbered correctly on the.
Okay. So I talked about parking spaces. We were talking about, I thought the example was with laundry.
9.2 does talk about parking spaces.
Okay.
yeah, President and Commissioner, so this would be section 9.20, enclosed parking space conversion allowance, as well as section 9.19, parking reduction. There, it's the same proposed amendment for both of those sections, which would be that, in this case, that the design and type of parking unit available to market rate units must be accessible, proportionally accessible to affordable units within that development.
So we're talking about parking here.
And then just to also mention, there's another amendment later on that expands our definition of that access to also include in-unit amenities. So that would be, the examples given in the amendment would be in-unit laundry or balconies.
How about a fireplace?
Yes.
Well, I mean, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to figure out what's the limit on what you would consider an in-unit amenity. And so like an example would be if the developer decides that market rate units need like a breakfast bar, because that works for their kind of marketing plan. And the affordable units are scaled in such a way that you have a dining room table, but you don't have a breakfast bar. Would that be considered an amenity that would? Just trying to figure out what the limiting factor is of that.
President, Commissioners, I would refer, in the OHO as written, I would refer to the design of the unit being comparable to market rate units. So when these developments come forward that have an integrated, affordable, and market rate component, those units must be developed the same way. So if your 2-bed market rate unit had a breakfast bar, your 2-bed affordable unit would also have that. They're not meant to be a lesser unit, the affordable unit. It's meant to be just the same unit, but with an affordability requirement. And that's as written.
Okay.
Kenny, may I? Acting President and members, there is a section in the OHO, section 9.36, that talks generally about the objectives of the OHO. And it talks about dispersion, integration, design, phasing, and timing. And these elements were initially intended to equalize the type of unit that was available to all, in that a household is a household is a household. And so this is where this comparable language is coming from. And again, that's 9.36.
So, building on Commissioner Peterson's comment, you're talking about same size unit, same one breakfast bar. Do we have granite in one and Formica on the other? Is that what or they all have the same?
Yeah, all the same, President and Commissioners. Yep. So that design as written is that, except as otherwise provided in this chapter, opportunity housing units must be comparable in construction, quality, and exterior design to the market rate units constructed as part of the development. That says
Same level of quality?
comparable in construction quality.
Somebody could interpret that.
The subjectivity in that
There's so much-
is,
Yeah,
I mean,
no.
how do you
I
police?
get the thought, but implementing and the reality of working with the constructor and the
Yeah.
developer,
In policing it,
and monitoring that.
monitoring it, the fine tuning here is
Yeah,
palpable.
I need you two to talk to my clients about this, because you're right.
yeah.
City Attorney Manished, did you have something to add?
So Acting President Nelson and members, one of the things that I've heard over the years in working with this ordinance is that the units aren't always designated for affordability. So in 1 month, it's an affordable unit, and then that family moves out, And then the next family that moves in is a market rate unit. And so we have compliance reporting that I believe Mr. Niemeyer works on that requires individuals that are managing these buildings to report out where those units are. So, for example, you can't put all the low-income units in the worst sort of views or the worst part of the building, right? So we do spend a lot of time working with developers about phasing, and you'll speak, and this 9.36 dispersion element, or excuse me, objective speaks to this as well. And so we're not seeking to concentrate all of the affordable units in one, sort of lower value part of the development. Instead, they're intended and encouraged to be integrated and dispersed throughout the development. So that 1 month, one lease cycle, you might have a market rate. Future lease cycle, it's an affordable unit.
Commissioner Peterson?
No, I'm just thinking about another hypothetical, and let's imagine that McGuff was here today and they were proposing the Reflections Tower. Okay, and there's 2 of those towers. And let's just imagine that they're building one of them. And you're new, so you may not be familiar with this building, but a lot of the people here will be familiar with it. It's over by the mall.
Sorry, what building?
The Reflections Tower.
Oh.
The Reflections Tower. And the way, and that building has a variety of units in it. It's a 17-story building. I think maybe it's 18 stories, 17, 18-story building. But one thing it has is each of the 2 buildings has 4 unique units that are 2-story penthouse units that sit in the 4 corners of the top 2 floors of the building. What I'm thinking about here is, like, for example, and so let's say each building was constructed separately and was considered a separate project under this. I'm just trying to get my mind around the idea of how this would apply in that situation, and I'm just having a hard time. And you don't have to answer that question, but that's just kind of what I'm thinking about. Is I think we definitely have a goal of providing housing for everybody in the city, but kind of limiting the variety of unit types, for example, so that every unit type has to be deliverable as an affordable unit. That seems like it gets that it could run counter some of our other goals, kind of doing that. So I'll just say that.
So Commissioner Peterson, if I might talk to that a little bit, just from what I've seen at the council, I'm used to them coming with different numbers, so they might have 7 affordable 1-bedrooms, 4 affordable 2-bedrooms, and no affordable 3-bedrooms, that sort of thing. I think, in some of the proposals, that's not unusual. So if there were penthouse units, that it would not surprise me if they came back with a proposal that had 0 affordable penthouse units. I frankly think penthouse and affordable slightly contradictory.
Absolutely.
I think to your point, that would be difficult, but you'd have the other ones in. And I think what they're talking to is if it's a 1-bedroom, it's a 1-bedroom. And you wouldn't be able to walk into a 1-bedroom, any of the 1-bedrooms and go, oh, this is the affordable one. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't necessarily be able to tell the difference, I think, is what they're going for. But I don't think there's a requirement that they do a certain number of units. This is actually something the council has talked about a number of times, because they're like, we need more affordable 3-bedroom units, because there are families that need an affordable place to live. And it's, on the development side, it's a lot easier to make an affordable 1-bedroom unit. It's a lot smaller square footage and things of that nature. So, yeah. Commissioner Keller?
And this is probably almost certainly a result of my profound ignorance, but sort of as a process thing. So if I understand this, we're saying, gee, we have all this stuff in writing so that developers know, hey, Bloomington can't do this and can't require that, so that it expedites their process. Is that fair enough?
President, Commissioner, so can you restate the question? You're referring to the proposed amendment, or you're referring to
the whole...
The OHO as written?
Yeah.
I would say that the OHO as written is a set of requirements that ensure that our housing developers have affordability as part of their outcomes, which allows the city to achieve its goals to produce affordable housing. So I wouldn't define it as a set of things that we're preventing developers from doing. Instead, I would describe it as something we're incentivizing.
Okay, then I'm not being clear, because I'm deeply confused about process again. I mean, I think what I heard the discussion was previously was that developers want to have some certainty. Is that, and that this gives them some certainty? Okay, so that's the answer to my original question, however poorly framed, was yeah. So we're putting these numbers in so that a developer's not going to waste their time on bidding on something or proposing something that we're going to bushwhack them on, and it's going to be below this percent or over that percent or whatever, because there's a certain amount of certainty into what the conditions might be to this incentive. Is that fair?
President, Commissioners, I would say yes. Our goal is to have a clear and transparent development process,
Okay.
which benefits both.
I get
developers.
that, and I hereby accept the fact that there'll always be some subjectivity in all of this stuff, and words are words, and we, nobody would think this, and penthouse doesn't mean that. Yeah, that's all we see now. Tomorrow, maybe someone feels differently, but the big process questions to me are, who has the right to say, wait, not so fast, and to put a fine point on it. So all of these things are limits on what we can do, but it spins both ways. I'm not being horribly articulate. I apologize for that. But to the breakfast nook and all of that kind of stuff, if we enter into a project agreement, does that essentially ratify what we seem to think are proportional, substantially similar, whatever it is? It's sort of the subjective, ambiguous terms that are inherent in all of this. Once it moves past that and the incentive is realized, does that mean the books are closed and no one can come back and say the developer, what? Yeah, but not so fast. Where does that line get crossed? Where the cake is baked and the developer is bound by the plans, and that these requirements sort of are deemed stamped accepted. Does that make sense? I'd be shocked, but
Thank you.
I'm willing for it.
Give a chance to answer this here.
Yeah. Acting President and Commissioners, anytime a development comes in, specifically to multifamily, and it's reviewed by the Opportunity Housing Ordinance, that plan is required to have what's called an affordable housing plan, which then is attached to all development agreements. That plan lays out the specific breakdown of the number of units within that development, and then how many of those specifically are to be affordable at which level. That plan is filled out by the developer. That developer fills it out. It is reviewed by our staff. We analyze it, make sure that it aligns with our Opportunity Housing Ordinance. And if it does, that plan is adopted as part of the zoning entitlements, and then is also adopted as part of, or as an exhibit to the development agreement if there is a financial incentive or a development agreement that goes with it.
But in all fairness, at that level of abstraction, that's pretty easy math. There's 3 here, 14 there, there are this many square feet, but we were talking about marble and fireplaces and all that kind of stuff. And that's a level of abstraction that's entirely different, and that's what I'm getting to. So a thing gets built, and there's some sort of uproar about, yes, but this isn't proportional, and you built all these crappy units and put them in here and there, no one's going to rent that, affordable or not. I mean, who has the right to complain about that? And does the acceptance of that plan that you're talking about close the books on the compliance of the project with these requirements at that more abstract level of abstraction? Just a process question. It's a question.
And Acting President, Commissioners, that's something we can definitely take back and talk to our compliance
Shouldn't we know the answer to that now? We have this.
attorney
Now.
and review it.
This is, we're amending something that already exists. So I would think we know the answer to that question now. So this is the new version of the thing we're already doing. So how does it work now?
And I think, they don't have that answer right now. I think
Why
they
not?
can follow up on it.
I really don't mean to be rude, but I really do want to follow up. But it seems to me if all we're doing is updating something, then we ought to know how it already works if we've been doing this.
Yeah.
I don't understand how that's an unfair question.
It's a fair question, Commissioner Keller, and I think we'll get an answer for you.
Okay.
I also think that I don't know that it's come up before, that it's been a concern either with the developers or with the city that concerns happen. But I think looking forward, it makes sense.
Who else is a constituency that has a right to make an issue out of this? The money, is it just the city and the developer, or does a citizen, or who can say, this?
My, non-legal background in this would say that the city, one, as a partner in having a development agreement, would have that right, as would any of the tenants who went in and said, hey, you know what, I have a substandard unit. They could contact the city could review that. What I don't know, and what I don't think staff knows right now, is what type of enforcement mechanism we would have to, if we went in there and said, okay, this one has all Formica countertops, it has substandard flooring, it doesn't have this or that amenity. But I think the other stuff in terms of the laundry, the breakfast bar, that's all going to be reviewed through plan. They'd be able to take a look at those plans and know that.
I'm sorry, it just, the lawyer in me makes that sound like hand waving.
It probably is. So I would not deny. I would also say that, from my understanding and from what we heard tonight, that the developer and the manager of that property, which aren't always the same entity, they want to be able to turn that unit over, and it might go to market rate, and then a different unit goes to that, and they have to be able to have, they don't want to dedicate those units to just this use. From what I've heard from them. So.
But we keep bouncing back and forth between being specific and having our hands tied and, we'll see what happens. And from a guy who's drafting the contracts and helping clients try to see what the future might be, and it's a long bit of mantra with my clients that you don't protect yourself to prosperity, but a little bit of, here's the bottom line. When I work on contracts with people, I tell my clients the words you never want to hear are, but I thought. And subjectivity is where that comes in. And 9 times out of 10 disputes that my clients have gotten into about contracts where they had a misunderstanding, and the purpose of the contract words, I tell my clients, are at least as much, if not almost entirely, to checkpoint whether they really understand each other. Now, it's not a hammer. It's a ruler to see if we're all on the same wavelength, if you will. And now my colleagues
Commissioner
correct me.
Keller, I appreciate that viewpoint. I appreciate you bringing that expertise to this. I think City Attorney Manderscheid maybe has something to add to this.
Acting President Nelson and members. So the compliance of the Affordable Housing Agreement in the controls are in 9.37. It lists the specific elements of the Affordable Housing Development Agreement. The reporting is due by February 1st, related to the previous calendar year. And I believe that those are first going to Mr. Niemeyer, or at least to the Community Development Department. And then the actual compliance element of it is in a subsequent part of the Opportunity Housing Ordinance. And I can tell you that goes up through our new compliance division in the legal department. Practically speaking, how I've seen it play out on the one complaint that I'm aware of is there was a complaint that came in, and I don't remember exactly which department it came in through, but it definitely came through our office in legal. We investigated what was going on. It ended up being sort of the result of the implementation of our own ordinances and our regulations. And so we worked with community development, we worked with environmental health, we worked with actually public works to say what is going on here from a technical perspective and how can we address what we're seeing on the literal ground. And are we in any way responsible for creating this situation such that we should amend our Opportunity Housing Ordinance to prevent that from happening in the future? Or are there other parts of our code that are flipping on that are creating unintended consequences for the development that we have been a part of in the approval process and then implementing our affordable housing agreements? So that's the one experience that I've seen play out. There might be others, but that's the one that I became aware of. It was a really interesting process because it made us aware of the sort of, sometimes you have very good intentions in the process, but you don't appreciate how the connectedness of all the larger systems are coming in. So,
Appreciate it. Don't mean to
Thank you.
perseverate.
Commissioner Lunds?
My concern here, I mean, the goals here are admirable. We don't want buildings built where there's another side of the tracks area within a building or a project. We don't want that. On the other hand, developers need a certain amount of latitude and a certain amount of operational freedom to make the building work right. So it's kind of a fine line. I just would caution against, the amount of specificity and fine tuning that's put into language governing this. So that's all I want to say.
Thank you for that feedback. Commissioner Hunt?
Microphone. Back in Planning Commission days, gazillions years ago, and Commissioner Peterson, you shared part of my tenure on that, but we had this distinct view of implementing ordinances and requirements on certain properties or things that who's policing it? And so the thing is about compliance. You're putting so much specificity in, and who's the monitoring? Is it being monitored? So putting things in that aren't going to be followed up doesn't serve a purpose either.
Thank you, President Commissioners. So I'll
General.
mention, sorry.
Just general comment.
Yeah, certainly. And I would mention that that's my charge, is to stand up the compliance program, to be more in-depth, to cover the requirements that we've set forth in the OHO. One component specifically relating to our discussion today would be implementing essentially a welcome packet for those tenants that would be renting affordable units, explaining what should be available to them, what requirements the developer that made their building had, and how that would impact that unit that they're renting. So, for example, we would say, just for an example, in that welcome packet, the unit that you're renting is the same as any other unit in this building in terms of quality, the language from the OHO in terms of construction quality and exterior design. It's comparable. So that would be one way to ensure that the tenant in that unit knows what outcome they should have received because of this ordinance that we have in place. If they determine that that's not the case, they could come to the city and make that complaint.
And who's monitoring that each tenant gets that welcome packet?
That would
putting
be
that in,
President, Commissioners.
management companies change and.
President, Commissioners, that would be my responsibility. So the intention would be working with every property manager that comes into these developments, that I would be making a point of contact with that person.
And year two, you're going to go out and monitor that too with that management company.
Yeah, President, Commissioners, yes, this would be at least an annual responsibility of mine to go out and liaison with those property managers. The idea with the welcome packet is that it would be a component of their lease agreement. It would be an addendum to the lease agreement. So in terms of compliance, we would see that they're providing this to their tenant, that their tenant has signed, that this is something that they've seen, and that it's part of their lease.
Acting President Nelson and Commissioners, if I may, I just wanted to give you the context that the OHO is still very new, and a lot of these projects are still being built. So the compliance part of the program is being built alongside it. So Kenny was brought on in a new position that was identified to help stand up this compliance program. And so you will have opportunities to see how this is executed in the future.
Great. Thank you for that clarification. Any other questions for Mr. Niemeyer? Not hearing any. Thank you very much. I hope your first experience was a good one. But I appreciate the questions and I appreciate the information.
Next experience is a good one.
So
thank you, President Commissioners. And I did just want to summarize with saying when you'll see this item again. So this was a study session. It's scheduled to come back before you on February 20th. And at that point, you would be considering a recommendation to City Council. So I've taken notes on everything that we've discussed. I intend to implement those changes as fit to the proposed amendment and bring them back in front of you. So thank you for your time.
thank you. There is nothing else on our agenda. I don't know if it's customary to open it up if anybody has anything that they want to bring forward. Okay. Yeah. I understand from Commissioner Peterson that I have the authority to just adjourn without a vote. So we stand in adjournment.